I'm going to take you through a summary of the passages. We will start with passage 1. All right. Passage 1 was about a book, The Dawn of Everything. It was a moderately difficult passage because the passage talks of a book, talks of two theories of human history, and the questions are about older theory, new theory, older theory. So if you do not pay attention to the main points, you would be likely to make a lot of mistakes. All right, I will take you through a summary of the passage first before we move on to answering the questions. Last year, a book called The Dawn of Everything announced that most of what we think we know about human history is wrong. A book was released which said everything you know about human history is wrong. Who is this? Who said this? Its co-authors, David Kreber and David Wengrow. So both David said everything you know about human history is wrong. They took aim, that means they targeted the established story that has been given by brand writers. And who are the brand writers of human history? Jared Diamond, Yuval Noah Harari, Steven Pinker. What is their story? They say that for most prehistory, before history was written, that period is called prehistory. So for most of prehistory, we lived in small egalitarian bands. Egalitarian means an equitable, equal kind of society. We lived in small egalitarian bands of hunter-gatherers, and it was only with the agricultural revolution about 12,000 years ago that we adopted larger forms of social organization. So in prehistory times, we lived in small bands. After agriculture was established, we moved on to bigger organizational form of living, leading to complex hierarchical communities. All of that, they argue. Now, who is the they we're talking about? The new authors, both the Davids, is based on outdated information. This theory is wrong based on outdated information. Clear? Second, in their best-selling books, Collapse, Sapiens, and The Better Angels of Our Nature, this there talks about Collapse, Jared Diamond, Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari, The Better Angels of Our Nature, Steven Pinker. These authors who told us we lived in egalitarian bands and then moved on to complex hierarchical societies after agriculture, these people wrote all these books, Collapse, Sapiens, and Better Angels of Our Nature. Those authors drew heavily on archaeological and anthropological findings. So they relied on archaeological and anthropological sources. But here's the question. None of them are archaeologists or anthropologists. These three authors who used archaeological and anthropological evidence were not archaeologists or anthropologists. By contrast, Graeber, who died 2 years ago, was thought by many to be one of the leading anthropologists of his generation. Neither was Jared Diamond an anthropologist, archaeologist, nor was Yuval Noah Harari, nor Steven Pinker, but Graeber, one of the co-authors of The Dawn of Civilization, who died 2 years ago, is one of the leading anthropologists of his generation, and his co-author, Wengrow, is a well-respected archaeologist. Now you are following the trend of the argument. First paragraph, whatever has been written about human history is wrong. People used, all these famous authors used anthropological and archaeological sources and findings, but they were not professional anthropologists and archaeologists. On the other hand, these new authors are. That's what has been established. Both disciplines, which disciplines? Archaeology and anthropology, have been subject to academic sniffiness, disdain. You sniff means you look down on somebody. So anthropology and archaeology have been looked down by the academic community. Why? Because they've been dismissed as easy options with one foot in the sciences and the other in the humanities. So archaeology and anthropology are sitting in the middle. They can neither be called science nor can be called humanities. And academic world has treated them with sniffiness, disdain, or kind of looking down on them, condescension. The difficulty in acquiring empirical evidence is common to both fields. It's very difficult to find empirical evidence. Empirical evidence means evidence based on experiment, observation, like physical sciences are empirical sciences, physics or chemistry. So it's difficult to do that because sociology and anthropology has to do with human behavior, with human organization, with human communities. So it's difficult to find empirical evidence, and that is the cause, say critics, of too much imaginative interpretation. Because you can't find empirical evidence, what do you tend to do? You use too much imaginative interpretation in these subjects, which is why they have been dismissed with academic sniffiness. Clear? Next, The Dawn of Everything, this is the new book written by David Graeber and Wengrow, argues that if there is creative myth-making, they say, okay, people have been accusing anthropology and archaeology of having creative myth-making because you have very little evidence, so you kind of make up imagination to interpret evidence. You use imagination to make up evidence. They said if there has been creative myth-making, it has been most often carried out by outsiders, economists, psychologists, and historians who have ignored modern scholarship and used old studies to rehash an inaccurate picture of human development. So what do these new authors say? Okay, they say if there is such myth-making and imagination in these subjects, this is because of outsiders who have contributed to the subject. They have used some old evidence and rehashed means mixed it up in a new version and given it to you. According to Graeber and Wengrow, that picture comes in two different forms. Which picture? The picture which has been given about these subjects by outsiders. It comes in two forms. What are the two forms? Either it's drawn by neo-Hobbesians, so one group of outsiders writing on anthropology and archaeologists can be called neo-Hobbesians, people like Pinker, who argue that modern civilization is a story of progress away from our nasty, brutish origins. This is what Pinker. Earlier, we had nasty, brutish life people led. Hobbes said life of man was short, nasty, brutal, something, something, and only after formation of the state, our life improved. So Steven Pinker and others like him are neo-Hobbesians who said earlier life was nasty and brutish and we progressed to a better life. The second group is neo-Rousseauians. Rousseau was a French philosopher who gave his theory, and these people follow Rousseau in saying, and who are they? Jared Diamond and Yuval Noah Harari, who associates civilizational progress with the loss of freedom. So they said that as people progress, as civilization progressed and developed, people lost freedom. So one which said we lived a better life, and other one said we progressed but we lost our freedom. So these are the two camps here. But the moment you come across but in the passage, wherever, remember they're giving the other point of view to these. So they are different in the form of either following Hobbes or Rousseau, but both camps, say the author, endorse the idea of historical determinism, by which humans have gone inexorably, inevitably, relentlessly, without any chance of slowing down or changing course, from cave dwellers to car drivers, seed sowers to citizens. So what is common to both the theories? That we have progressed from one form to another through historical determinism. We just had no say in our development, from cave dwellers to car drivers or whatever. We just moved on, okay, in a predetermined path. Both of them agree with that. All right. Next paragraph. Graeber and Wengrow reject this teleological approach. Teleological approach is approach talking about development, which goes on because of a function that is performed, that you develop through functionality. They reject this approach and instead place the emphasis for change on human choice. They said, no, it was not. We developed because it suited us, or suited circumstances were suitable. So that's how progress happened. Progress happened through human choice. We had a choice in the way we developed. They did not believe in determinism. They did not believe in the teleological approach. They said, no, we had a choice and a say in the way we progressed. They argue our prehistory was not uniform. The period before history was written, prehistory was not uniform. It was made of many, myriad, means countless social arrangements, some involving large cities, some monarchical, some egalitarian, and some with slave labor. There were different types of organizations. There was monarchy, there were large cities, there was slavery, there were all kinds of organizations, even in prehistory. For a long time after the arrival of agriculture, the earlier guys said, no, after agriculture, we came to more complex organizational structure. These people said for a long time after the arrival of agriculture, there was no fixed model of community organization, but rather a rich diversity of societies using agriculture, but not succumbing to its regimented social demands. Even after agriculture came, people used agriculture, but they were not, their life, their form of organization was not dictated to by agriculture. Clear? So we got, so far you have the flow of ideas. Now this should be done fast when you do it in the exam. Reading and restating has to happen at the same time. Graeber was a renowned anarchist and activist. So he not just believed, was an anarchist, didn't believe in established set of laws, believed. He was also an activist. He promoted his thoughts through action. He was involved in the Occupy Wall Street movement at the outset, which is often attributed with having coined the slogan, "We are the 99%." The Occupy Wall Street movement, look it up, was about, it was a protest that started in New York about the inequality that was happening in contemporary society. Unsurprisingly then, now this is the last paragraph of the passage. Often you have to pay more attention to the first and the last paragraph, because the last paragraph is where the author ties up his points and maybe comes up with some sort of a final word or a conclusion. Unsurprisingly then, the book seeks to do more than rewrite the past. The book is not just about human history. It doesn't just rewrite the past. It does something more. What does it do? It also wants to use that past to provide political inspiration for today. So it has a political agenda. What is that? If a genuine sense of freedom in how we organize ourselves was fundamental to our prehistory, they say, then perhaps our prehistory is a key to our liberation in the future. If it was freedom, the sense of choice, the sense of freedom that structured our prehistory, then we have to use that same freedom to try to fashion our future. As the advertising campaign puts it, a phrase that Graeber liked to use, it's time to change the course of history. And how do you change the course of history? Starting with the past. Very interesting statement there. All right. Now, let's look at the questions. Question 2. All of the following arguments are made in the passage except, again, we have to only look at one which cannot, an argument which does not appear in the passage. Which one is it? Too often prehistoric societies have been characterized by scholars outside the relevant fields of archaeology and anthropology. True, the Jared Diamond, Steven Pinker, Yuval Noah Harari, the authors mentioned by Graeber, both the Davids. And he says that creative myth making is because of people who are not archaeologists professionally, not anthropologists professionally. There were other things. They came. These outsiders are the ones which indulged in creative myth making. So A is correct. The argument has been made. According to the dawn of everything, prehistoric societies can be a model of freedom for present and future generations. Yes, that's what the last paragraph talks about. If in the past we used freedom of choice, then we can use it in the future also. So knowing the history, knowing prehistory, we can fashion our future. Therefore, yes, B has also been mentioned in the last paragraph. The dawn of everything has been written fundamentally provide political inspiration. He has used the term that it has been written to provide. It's not just history, it has been written to provide political inspiration. But did he use this extreme word? Was that the primary reason? Was it written fundamentally, basically, mainly to provide political inspiration? You can't say that. No. They wrote history. They said that the history that has been given is wrong. And they also said we can use this history as political inspiration. So, this word fundamentally is what makes this argument not stated in the passage. That word makes it an extreme statement that is not correct. Therefore, my answer is C. Let's just look at D. Archaeologists and anthropologists were not influenced by the forms of thinking of Neo-Hobbesians or Neo-Russians with regard to prehistoric society. Yes, because what is the main argument of Wengrow and what's the other name? David Wengrow and David Graeber. That creative myth making was made by outsiders. Archaeologists and anthropologists, our sources are fine, we have empirical evidence. So they were not influenced. The Neo-Russians and Neo-Hobbesians are, when they talk about those thinkers who wrote these books, they were talking about the outsiders. Therefore, yes, D also is an argument made, and our answer therefore is C.